Most of the videos that I do are how to rebuild your pump at home using one of our kits. This particular style pump is a Nissan Patrol in the 70s somewhere, and unfortunately we don't offer a kit for it because there's so many different options and there's no way to identify the pump. There's some that have 2 valves that are staked, some of them have 4 valves that are staked, some of them have 2 valves that are held down by a little bracket with 2 screws in it. And which kit do we give you? I suppose if you took it all apart, if you took this top cover off, you could tell which one it would use, which valves it would use. But just to give you an example, here's one of the ones that's held down by, there's 2 brackets that go in it. There's 2 clamps, I should say. They go across the valve and holds the valve down. So there's one on each side. And there's also one that has 4 valves. There's 4 valves, this style pump, that are all staked in, as you can see, around the outside edge. This particular one only has 3 on each. I've seen them with 6 or 8 where they've dimpled the casting to hold the valve in. As you can see, that it comes out just a little bit into where the valve would sit, and it holds the valve down tight. Otherwise, everything else is exactly the same. Takes the same pulsator, same number of screws, same diaphragm assembly, same spring. The seal is the same that goes into the body. Everything's identical, just the difference is how the valves are held in, whether it's 2 or 4 valves. So what I'll do is I'll just go through this, show you how this particular one goes back together. Now they all have the inlet and outlet in the same position. As you can see, it says out, but once you get the valve in, you can tell that the fuel is going to come up through, hit the pulsator, and get shot out through that hole. It goes up to your carburetor. The inlet is always at what I call a 9 o'clock position, because you hold the pump upside down, and it could very well go on the engine this way here. I have no idea. I've never seen one on the engine. But when you're working on it, it's upside down. And 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6, and 9. The inlet is always at the 9 o'clock. Let's do it a little different. The outlet is always at the 3 o'clock. Because there's some that have the outlet down here, as opposed to up in this spot where this one here would be. But anyway, we're going to go for it. And I see this one here is missing the arm return spring that usually goes inside of here. But now there's at least 2 different styles, 2 different manufacturers. This one says Nikki. Nikki. This particular one says that. And let's see if I have one of the other ones here. I don't. I think there's one more, a third different name on it, but they all end up the same. The difference being, like I said, is the number of valves and how the valves are held in. So let's get at this one here. Now, I didn't show how to disassemble one of these pumps, but it's pretty straightforward. Mark the location of the clock position of the casting, the fuel casting. I remove these 7 screws around here to take this pulsator off, take that gasket out of there, remove the 8 screws that hold the fuel section on, and the diaphragm. Once you get that off, underneath there you'll see the spring and the diaphragm assembly. Now the diaphragm assembly is held in, the link that's inside is a fork, kind of like a carder, only instead of this being the top of the pull rod being around like the carder, this one's slotted. So it would be in this way and be hooked onto the link inside. In order to get it out of there, push down just a little bit, turn it 90 degrees, it'll come up and stop. Inside here in the center, let me grab one of the bodies to show you. Down inside the body, as you can see, the link down inside of there, and the pull rod goes down and turns and holds it. Now right here in this ledge there's a kind of a little cup that sits there, and I'm not sure whether I still have any of them. I had a bunch here somewhere. Let me see if I can find one. Okay, I located one in the trash because I just throw them away. As you can see, that's keyed also. And the pull rod sits down inside of here. So once you release it from the link, it's going to come up and hit that. Turn it 90 degrees again, and it'll slide out. And this just pops. It sits down in there, and you don't need it anymore. Take your screwdriver, put it down inside, and just pop it to one side, and it'll pop out. Throw it away. You don't need it. You're not going to use it again. Then clean everything up and get it ready to go back together. It's fairly simple. Just having the parts for it, knowing which parts you're going to need, is the tough part. Okay, let's do the valves. Because I glass bead everything, I stick these screws back in for 2 reasons. Keeps all the glass beads out of the threads, and it cleans up the screws too. A lot of times you'll find that the Phillips area of these screws is all got gunk in it. Now, what they've done is, if you were to use one of these valves and put it in there, and this valve's going the wrong way, but just to show you, then we'll put it in the right way. To show you why we do this next step. This valve has to sit proud of this hole. It has to stick up higher than this part right here, where the screws go. There's that bracket that goes down over the top of it. It wouldn't hold the valve down. This doesn't sit high enough. Even with putting one gasket in there, it doesn't sit high enough. So on this particular one, what's needed is, yep, you guessed it, 2 gaskets. Put 2 of them in. Now the valve sits up high. It's got to sit up higher than those 2 pieces of casting where the screws go. Put the bracket on, put the screws in, tighten them down, and that will hold the valve in. And that only pertains to this particular one that has uses these two brackets, I guess you call them brackets. These two things to hold these valves down. Now that valve's held in there nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. Same thing for the other side. Just pay attention to which way the valves go. You'll notice that this one, the seat is higher than the other side. One valve goes in one way, one valve goes in the other way. One of the valves obviously is the inlet and one's the outlet. See how this is the outlet port? Fuel from underneath where the diaphragm is pushing it up. It's going to push it out through that hole and it's going to go out up to your carburetor. Same with this one here. When that diaphragm gets pulled down, pulls the fuel in, pulls it down through here, comes in through this, pulls it down, pushes it back up, pushes it out. Pay attention to this. There's a rib in there. I usually keep them with the name. Put the screws in. Don't tighten them down yet. Wait till you get them all in. Once all the screws are in, now you can tighten them down. Tighten down the center one, and then just do the crisscross. These foreign pumps the aluminum in them is a lot more stable than, say, the ACs. Now we want to test it, kind of a half-ass way of testing it. You should be able to suck air out and not blow it in. Same thing with the inlet, you should be able to blow air in and not be able to suck it out. That was the noise of success. Now this particular one has a priming lever on it. This is the seal that we would put in it. Sits right over that. Where the other one was just a that metal cover that I showed you, that little keyed thing. This one here actually keeps the oil out. There is another seal that goes in there, the factory seal. And it looks like this. Similar to ours. Only ours is better. Drop the seal on. Put a little motor oil or a little, any kind of grease or something on it. There's also a little ring that sits over it to protect the seal from the spring, so the spring doesn't cut it. Let me take the pull rod, the diaphragm assembly. Started off with the slot going the same way as the arm is. Hook it in, go down until you feel it go through that, and turn it 90 degrees. And as you can see, it's hooked in there. It's not going anywhere. Line up your lines, or just remember that the outlet is always at the 3 o'clock position. Get one screw through the diaphragm, get it caught, but don't tighten it down. I usually go about halfway down and do one opposite. Put all the rest of them in, but don't tighten them. Once all the screws are down to at least the casting, take an adjustable wrench, put it on the arm for leverage, and pull it all the way up till it stops. Now you can start tightening these screws down. Get 4 of them down, and then you can release the lever. I like to do it opposite each other because it helps to hold the keep the diaphragm from pulling in. That's the sound of success. Tighten them all down. Now, just to make sure you didn't forget any, I go around it once more and give it just a little tickle. That way I know I didn't leave any of the screws loose. And give it a quick test. Hold it up, cover up the outlet, pressure. Leave it down, cover up the inlet, and try pulling that arm up, and you'll feel suction. Like I said before, this has got a primer lever that's supposed to be straight. That's it. Put the gasket on, put it on the engine, and go 4-wheeling. I hope it helped.